I'm Morgan, 36. I spent 7 months scraping together $6,200 for my son Eli's 8th birthday. When we finally arrived at the Polaris Skyview event space, the banner above the cake table read Happy 8th Mason. My sister was already there, smiling wide, while her son unwrapped gifts that should have had my boy's name on them. If you were in my shoes, would you have said something or just swallowed your anger? I'd love to know how you'd handle it. For most of my adult life, I've played it safe. I let things slide for the sake of family peace, even when it meant swallowing disappointment, even when it meant explaining to my son year after year why his birthday never felt truly his. This time, I wanted more for him. Not just a cake at our cramped apartment, not leftover presents from cousins, not another memory that would fade into something sad and quiet. I wanted a day he'd remember, a day that belonged to Eli, and only Eli. The road to that day wasn't easy. Between my job as an admin assistant at a law office, the double shifts pouring coffee at North Market Cafe, and the hours I squeezed in as a freelance transcriptionist after Eli was asleep, saving up for something special felt like stacking. Bricks with bare hands, every paycheck was mapped out, rent, groceries, Eli's school lunches, a little put away each week for this dream party. The Eli's 8th birthday envelope taped behind the cereal box in the cupboard was my secret hope. I started planning 6 months ago as soon as the first snow melted, and Eli mentioned, almost in passing, it'd be cool to see the stars for my birthday. He'd watched a documentary about meteor showers at school. That night, he left a paper chain on my pillow, a countdown he called it for a party somewhere with real telescopes. I didn't say yes right away. I just tucked him in, stared at that chain of purple and blue links, and promised myself that this year would be different. When I booked the Polaris Skyview, I felt like I was walking on air. Eli and I spent evenings picking out silver confetti, designing a cake shaped like the Milky Way, writing names of his friends on star-shaped invitations. I splurged on a new button-down shirt for him, silver gray, a little shiny, perfect for a kid who wanted to be an astronaut for a day. For weeks, our apartment buzzed with a quiet, happy energy. Eli even started leaving sticky notes on the fridge. 7 weeks, only 23 days soon. The last few days before the party were a blur of nervous excitement. Eli barely slept the night before, and neither did I. We packed up party favors, double-checked the guest list, practiced his welcome speech for his friends. That morning, I braided his hair, straightened his collar, and made star-shaped pancakes while he recited facts about Jupiter. We drove to the venue in a daze of anticipation. I barely noticed the extra cars in the parking lot or the way my sister Heather's SUV was already in the spot closest to the door. We carried in our box of decorations, Eli clutching his favorite space book, his eyes wide with wonder. Inside, I stopped cold. Balloons in blue and red, Mason's favorite colors, bounced along the ceiling. The cake, a glossy red and blue, sat under a banner I had never ordered. Eli froze, reading the letters. My heart twisted. Heather spotted us, waving Eli over with a laugh as if nothing was out of place. My mother, Sandra, called out from the far end of the table, "Morgan, you made it. Isn't this nice for the boys?" I stood there, arms full, not sure if I should shout or vanish. Eli's grip on my hand tightened. "Mom, is this my party?" he whispered, too soft for anyone but me to hear. It's hard to describe what happens in a moment like that when all your hopes are swapped out for someone else's celebration. I tried to keep my voice steady, tried to keep Eli from seeing how much it hurt. All those months, all those nights working overtime vanished with one careless banner. As I stood in the middle of a room full of people who didn't seem to notice what they'd taken, I realized this wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last unless I did something different. The party had just begun, but for Eli and me, everything had already changed. Columbus, 2017 to 2023. Looking back, birthdays in our family always seem to drift toward disappointment like balloons that never quite make it off the ground. I wish I could say Eli was too young to notice, but he's always been sharp, even as a toddler. And each year, the memory of those days lingered just a little longer. Eli's 5th birthday was our first big attempt. We had just moved into a tiny apartment on the north side, barely enough room for his train set, and my secondhand couch. I scraped together enough for a handful of cupcakes from the grocery store, and we took him to the city park. It was just the two of us and one of Eli's friends from preschool. The wind kept blowing out the candles, so Eli made his wish in silence, staring up at the gray clouds. Heather, meanwhile, threw Mason a party that same weekend. Bounce house in the backyard, a magician, catered sandwiches lined up like soldiers. Eli received an invitation, but when I asked Heather if Eli could bring a friend, she laughed. "Morgan, there's not enough room in the bouncy house." Eli brought home a goodie bag anyway, more valuable than any of his own gifts. The next year, my old Chevy gave up 2 days before Eli's birthday. The tow truck bill took the last of my savings. That night, I let Eli pick out a pizza, and we watched a space documentary together. I gave him a wrapped box of Mason's old action figures, handed down with a smile and a "You should be grateful, Eli." He tried. He hugged me tight and told me it was just what I wanted, but I saw the truth in his eyes. I saw him glance at the new toys Mason bragged about at school. Sandra, my mother, always had a way of reminding me where I stood. The day after Eli's 6th birthday, I called to ask if she could help with groceries. "Heather's having a hard time this month, Morgan," she replied. "She needs help more than you do. You'll figure something out. You always do." Those words echoed for months. I began to feel invisible, both as a daughter and a mother. Every birthday after that, Heather's events got grander. Mason's 7th birthday meant a scavenger hunt, a live DJ party, favors that probably cost more than my rent. I learned to nod and smile to accept when Sandra pressed Mason's old clothes and outgrown bikes into my hands. "Hand-me-downs build character," she'd say, folding up shirts that still smelled like Heather's laundry detergent. Eli stopped asking for big parties. He'd say, "We can just make cupcakes, right, Mom?" And I would pretend not to hear the hope slipping out of his voice. By the time Eli turned 7, he no longer made birthday lists. We celebrated with a store-bought cake and pizza, again, just the 2 of us. He blew out his candle and wished, I'm sure, for something more. Later that night, he hugged me and whispered, "Maybe next year." The worst part wasn't the lack of money or the hand-me-down toys. It was watching my son learn to expect less, to shrink his dreams so they wouldn't break his heart. That's what stung the realization that I'd begun to do the same. It was after that birthday, late at night with Eli asleep, that I opened a new savings account, Eli's 8th birthday. It started with a single bill tucked in like a promise. I swore to myself that next year, no matter what it took, things would be different. Fall in Columbus can be beautiful, the leaves a bright mess along the sidewalks, but last year the only thing I really noticed was the thin envelope taped inside my cupboard, the one labeled Eli's 8th birthday. Each week I'd slip in whatever I could manage, a 5, a 10, the odd tip from a kind regular at North Market Cafe. Eli would watch with solemn curiosity, asking, "How much do we have now, Mom?" We turned it into a math game, but really it was a hope game. Every dollar was another brick in the wall between us and disappointment. My routine blurred into a cycle of work home and saving. I'd clock out of the office at 5, rush to the cafe, pour coffee until closing, then tiptoe into our apartment and fire up my old laptop to transcribe interviews for attorneys I'd never meet. Sometimes Eli would fall asleep at the kitchen table, pencil still in hand, a list of party ideas half finished. Other nights, he'd surprise me with paper chains, each link marked with a countdown number and a tiny planet drawn in colored pencil. We made a rule: every dollar above our regular bills went straight into the birthday fund. I learned how to live on less than I thought possible. Dinners became simple macaroni soup, sometimes just toast. I canceled, the cable sold off an old bike, put off new shoes. Eli never complained. He started helping around the apartment, offering to sweep or fold laundry just to see me smile. As winter set and our party dreams took shape, Eli and I designed invitations together, writing out his friends' names in sparkly ink and drawing stars in the margins. He wanted a space theme, of course, like NASA, but with cake. We spent evenings browsing for the perfect outfit. When we found a silver gray shirt on sale, Eli tried it on and beamed. "Do I look like an astronaut?" he asked. "You look like the commander," I told him. By February, the Eli's 8th birthday account was halfway to our goal. Eli's faith never wavered, even when I worried about a bill coming due or a shift cut at the cafe. He'd tape up new links on his countdown chain and reassure me, "It's okay, Mom, we'll get there." In March, when we finally hit our target $6,200, I took Eli to Polaris Skyview for a tour. The manager, Jessica, showed us the big room with telescopes glow in the dark stars and a wall of windows looking out over the city. Eli was so dazzled he forgot to speak. I booked the space on the spot, leaving a deposit that made my hands shake, but my heart feel lighter than it had in years. The last month was a blur of lists and preparation. We filled goodie bags with rocket stickers and candy. Eli drew up a playlist of space songs for the party. He carefully addressed 15 invitations for his classmates and a couple of neighbors. Almost everyone replied yes. At home, we hung up the final countdown chain. Just one link left. Eli stood on a chair to tape it above his bed. "Next week, I'll be 8, he said. "And this time, it's really my party, right?" I hugged him and tried not to let my voice shake. "This year, Eli, it's all you, promise." That night, as Eli drifted off to sleep, I stared at the glow in the dark stars on his ceiling and let myself believe that for once things would finally go right. March in Ohio means snow in the morning and mud by afternoon, but the Friday before Eli's birthday felt different. Sunlight spilled into our kitchen, turning our little apartment golden. The countdown chain hanging from the fridge had only one paper link left. Eli tore it off with a grin, bouncing in his chair as he packed goodie bags for his friends. He kept humming the chorus to Space Oddity while I checked off last-minute details. I had taken the day off from both jobs, determined to get everything perfect. Eli helped as much as he could, stacking napkins, double-checking the playlist, making sure every bag had the same number of candies and stickers. His excitement was contagious. For the first time in years, I let myself feel hopeful. My mother, Sandra, called mid-morning. I recognized her tone before she said a word, the kind of voice she used when she was about to ask me for something I wouldn't want to give. "Morgan, sweetheart," she began. "Heather was wondering if you could let Mason be part of the party. He's been feeling a little left out lately. You know how important these milestones are." I swallowed my frustration. "Mom, I've already sent invitations. The theme is set, and Eli really wants this to be just his. He's never had that before." Sandra sighed, disappointment sharp as ever. "You know, Heather's been under a lot of pressure. Mason's your nephew. Family comes first. Don't you think Eli could share, just this once?" I almost laughed at the "just this once," but I kept my voice steady. "No, Mom, this year is Eli's turn. I'm not changing that." She huffed, mumbled something about selfishness, and hung up before I could reply. I set my phone down and stared at the blank wall, feeling the old familiar ache of being the difficult daughter. For years, I'd given in letting Heather's needs eclipse my own and Eli's, but not this time. Later that afternoon, a text popped up from Jessica, the venue manager. I'd been waiting for her confirmation all week, but instead of the usual cheery check-in, the message read, "Hi, Morgan, just confirming the new details for tomorrow. Joint party superhero and space theme, both boys' names on banner per Heather's instructions." I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Eli at the table looked up at me. "Everything okay, Mom?" I tried to keep my voice light, just double-checking details with the venue. "Go on, pick out a book for tonight." I dialed Jessica right away. My voice was calm, but my hands shook. There must be a mistake. I'm the one who booked the party. It's for Eli's space theme only. There's no joint party, no superhero theme. Jessica sounded confused but apologetic. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Heather called yesterday and said you'd agreed to combine. I should have double-checked." My heart hammered. I explained everything, my booking, my deposit, my son's expectations, the months of planning. Jessica listened, genuinely embarrassed. "I'll fix this," she promised. "We'll keep the original plan. Space theme just for Eli. I'll make sure the staff know." I hung up, shaken but resolute. I found Eli on his bed, sorting through his favorite astronomy book. He glanced at me, searching for reassurance. I sat beside him and ruffled his hair. "Tomorrow is your day, Eli. I promise nobody's going to take it away from you." But after he fell asleep, I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, replaying every conversation with Heather and my mother over the years. Their patterns, taking, asking, assuming, ran deeper than I'd let myself admit. Doubt gnawed at me, but I tried to brush it away. I'd fixed things, hadn't I, Jessica had promised? Eli would finally have the birthday he deserved. Still, as I laid out his silver shirt for the next day and arranged the star-shaped plates, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to slip out of my control. The night was too quiet. The hope in our apartment felt too fragile. That's the thing about family patterns. They don't just fade because you stand up once. Sometimes they fight back. When I finally crawled into bed, the last thing I saw was Eli's countdown chain, just one link left, swinging gently in the draft from the window. I promised myself and him that we'd made it this far. No one would steal his moment. I believed it. I had to. Saturday morning in Columbus, dawn bright and sharp, a slice of sunlight angling through the blinds. Eli woke up before I did, bouncing on my bed, cheeks flushed with excitement. "It's today, Mom, I'm 8. He wore his new silver shirt, still too big at the cuffs, and grinned like he'd just landed on the moon. I poured him star-shaped pancakes, even though neither of us could eat much. My hands shook as I packed the goodie bags, double-checking each one, lining up the little rockets and glittery stickers. Eli zipped around the apartment, reciting space facts to calm his nerves, asking me for the 10th time if his classmates would really come. I promised they would. He tucked his favorite astronomy book under his arm for the science show and hugged me tight. We loaded the car, hearts thumping. The drive to Polaris Skyview felt endless, Eli narrating every mile. That's where Miss Tanita's Gentry gets coffee. That's where I saw a shooting star. When we pulled into the parking lot, my breath caught. Heather's SUV was already there, parked right by the door. For a second, I pushed the worry aside. Maybe she just wanted to help set up. Maybe this year things really would be different. Jessica met us inside her smile tight. Morning, Morgan. Everything's ready. Her voice faltered, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Eli bounded ahead, calling for his friends. But the party room didn't look the way we'd planned. The tables were crowded with blue and red balloons, Mason's colors, not Eli's. The cake was topped with superheroes instead of planets, and the banner above the main table stretched wide read, Happy 8th Mason. My sister Heather waved from the center of it all, Mason beside her in a Superman cape, surrounded by a crowd of kids. You made it. Isn't this just perfect for both boys, she called. My mother Sandra hovered near the presents, her arms folded in satisfaction. Eli froze. He clung to my hand, his voice a whisper. Mom, where's my cake? I fought the urge to scream. Months of hope and labor threatened to unravel in that moment. I caught Jessica's eye. She mouthed, I'm sorry, before disappearing to the back. Trying to keep it together, I led Eli to the corner where a few decorations sat untouched star-shaped plates, goodie bags with his name, the playlist he'd made. His classmates filtered in, unsure where to stand, glancing at the superhero theme and Mason's friends. One of Eli's closest buddies tugged my sleeve. Is this still Eli's party? I bent down. Yes, we're gonna make it work, I promise. Heather swept over, beaming. Isn't this fun? The boys can share like we used to remember. Before I could answer, Sandra joined her, praising how nice it is to have family together. Eli stared at the floor, shoulders hunched, cheeks red. Gifts for Mason piled up on the table while Eli's small bag wrapped in silver labeled in my handwriting sat off to the side. I tried to rally setting up the science show items I'd brought, but Heather and Mason had already begun opening presents. Go ahead, Eli, you can help, Heather called. Eli shook his head and retreated to a chair by the window. The chatter and laughter blurred around me. A parent from Eli's class approached, confusion in her voice. We thought this was Eli's special day. I tried to smile. It still is. For him, it's always special. I slipped out to find Jessica. She apologized, showing me the revised schedule Heather had emailed at midnight. She insisted you were on board, Jessica explained, but I know now that wasn't true. I'm so sorry, Morgan. My heart hammered anger, burning cold and deep. I forced myself to return to the party to Eli. He sat alone, tracing a star in the condensation on the window. I crouched beside him, pulling the silver-wrapped book from my bag. Happy birthday, kiddo. I know it's not what we imagined, but you are the star today, no matter what anyone else says. He hugged me quiet for a long moment. Then softly, thanks, Mom. Can we just do the space stuff? Just us? I nodded, and together we set up a corner for the science show, our own constellation of hope amid a party that wasn't ours. A few of Eli's friends joined us, launching foam rockets and laughing over glow sticks. For a little while, it felt like the party I'd promised. But when the time came for cake, Mason blew out the candles. Sandra led the singing. My voice caught. Eli clapped along, eyes shining but wet. As the party wound down, Heather thanked me for making it so easy. I bit back words I'd been swallowing for years. Instead, I packed up what was left, gathering Eli close. On the way out, he squeezed my hand. Next year, he whispered, can we just have it be us? I looked down at him, the weight of the day settling in. Yes, Eli, next year we do it our way. That promise, quiet as a new moon, was the only gift I had left to give. The party room buzzed with chaos, children, shrieking parents, chatting superhero capes, fluttering past rocket-themed plates. But for me, everything felt muted, as if I were underwater. Eli pressed against my side eyes on the star-shaped goodie bags we'd made together. It was supposed to be his celebration. Instead, it had become Mason's stage. I knelt beside Eli, How about we do something just for you? His eyes brightened. I beckoned Jessica over, voice trembling but clear. Can we use the side room now for Eli and his friends? That's what we booked. Jessica nodded instantly, apologetic. Of course, the planetarium is ready. I'll let the staff know it's your space. Heather caught my arm. Wait, Morgan, are you really splitting the party? You don't have to make this weird. Her smile was tight. Sandra hovered, arms crossed. Just let the boys share. That's what family does. I faced them, finally done with shrinking. I paid for this party. Eli deserves his own day. You had no right to change our plans. My voice surprised even me, steady, not angry, just tired. For a moment, Heather looked stunned. Then she shrugged, turning back to Mason and the guests. Sandra mumbled, always making a scene, but I ignored her. Jessica led us to the planetarium. The room was dark except for pinpricks of projected stars swirling across the ceiling. Eli's friends, sensing the shift, followed eagerly. We gathered on beanbags while Jessica dimmed the lights. Welcome to the cosmos, she announced. Eli beamed, cradling his astronomy book. Jessica began the show. The room filled with gasps as comets streaked by constellations flickered and the Milky Way stretched across the dome. Eli sat in the center, utterly spellbound, answering every question Jessica asked. His friends clapped for him, and I felt my throat tighten, not with anger this time, but with pride. Halfway through, Jessica pulled me aside. Morgan, I found your original booking paperwork and payment. I'm so sorry about the confusion. We're giving you and Eli an extra hour on us. She pressed the folder into my hands. The relief washed over me. Thank you, I whispered. After the show, we shared our own little space cake in the side room, just a store-bought vanilla cake with star sprinkles, but it was ours. Eli's friends sang. He made his wish and blew out the candles. I held him close as he grinned, cheeks sticky with icing. As the afternoon faded, a few parents lingered. One mother whispered, I'm glad you stood up for your son. Not everyone would. Another quietly handed Eli a small card. Inside was a handmade astronaut badge. Back in the main room, the superhero chaos was winding down. Heather avoided my gaze. Sandra fussed over Mason's leftover gifts. I packed our things feeling lighter than I had all day. Eli hugged me tight as we left. That was the best birthday, Mom. You made it special just for me. I smiled, kissing the top of his head. Always, kiddo. You shine brightest in your own galaxy. As we walked out into the chilly spring air, Eli bounced along, showing off his badge to anyone who'd look. The day had started as a disaster, but in the end, it became the celebration he'd hoped for. Not perfect, but truly his own. For the first time in a long while, I felt proud, not just for surviving the mess, but for drawing a line, for teaching Eli that he mattered. Sometimes quiet justice is just claiming what should have been yours all along. Sunday morning arrived with a hushed sunlight soft on our apartment walls. The party was over, but the fallout was just beginning. I sat at our tiny kitchen table sipping coffee that had gone cold, scrolling through messages on my phone. The first was from Sandra. You embarrassed Heather and ruined a family party. Mason is devastated. You owe your sister an apology. I set the phone down and breathed steady and slow. For years, I would have answered right away, would have tried to smooth things over. But this time I didn't respond. Instead, I watched Eli in the living room humming as he built a rocket out of recycled boxes, his new astronaut badge clipped to his shirt. Heather's text came next. You're selfish. You always make everything about Eli. I don't know if I can forgive this. The words stung, but only for a moment. I could feel the old guilt trying to settle in, but I let it drift past me like static. I spent the morning tidying up sweeping star-shaped sprinkles from under the table, folding Eli's silver shirt for the laundry, packing leftover goodie bags into a box for his friends at school. Every so often, I glanced at the group chat for parents from Lincoln Elementary. I half expected Whisper's judgment. Instead, I found something else. A message from one of the moms. We all saw what happened yesterday. You handled it with so much grace. Eli's lucky to have you. Another thank you for speaking up. Sometimes it's hard to draw boundaries even with family. I blinked back tears. Validation from strangers felt oddly healing, like a balm on a years-old bruise. Eli sat at the kitchen table with colored pencils working on a new project. "Look, Mom, I made our constellation." He held up a sheet filled with silver stars, two brightest ones labeled Eli and Mom. I hugged him, whispering how proud I was. By noon, Sandra called. This time, I answered. Her voice was clipped. "So you're really gonna act like this didn't happen? Family means forgiving Morgan. Are you really gonna hold a grudge?" I took a deep breath. "Mom, I'm not angry, but I'm not apologizing for standing up for Eli. This was his birthday. He deserved it." A heavy silence. "You always have to be difficult." She hung up. Afterward, Eli and I made grilled cheese sandwiches and ate lunch in our little living room, sunlight pooling on the floor. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. That afternoon, Eli's friends from school sent messages, pictures from the party, thank you notes for the rocket stickers and glow sticks. One of the boys wrote, "Best birthday ever." "Let's do space camp together next year," Eli beamed pride, shining in his eyes. Heather stayed silent the rest of the day. Mason didn't call. My mother retreated into her usual quiet. I felt the gap growing between us, a space I'd always tried to fill, to shrink, to bridge. Now I realized maybe some distance was exactly what we needed. In the evening, Eli and I went for a walk around the block, the early spring chill biting our cheeks. He skipped ahead, collecting pebbles, humming under his breath. When we got home, he taped his new constellation to the wall above his bed next to the faded paper chain. As I tucked him in, he whispered, "Mom, this was my favorite birthday, even with the mess." I squeezed his hand heart, aching and full. Boundaries aren't always easy. Sometimes they're met with anger or silence. But for the first time in my life, I felt sure that protecting my son and myself was worth whatever came next. That night, I deleted the old family group chat from my phone. I kept the messages from Eli's friends and the parents who'd reached out, little reminders that kindness can come from unexpected places. In the quiet that followed, I felt something settle inside me. Not regret, not fear, just a calm certainty that I'd done what was right for Eli and for me. April in Columbus is when winter finally loosens its grip and the city softens into spring. Our apartment windows let in pale sunlight and the air smells faintly of earth and hope. The chaos of Eli's birthday had faded, replaced by something steadier, a quiet, almost fragile peace. We didn't see much of Heather or Sandra after the party. My phone stayed silent. There were no more guilt-laced messages, no demands to apologize, no sudden invitations for Sunday dinner. I expected to feel lonely, but the distance felt more like relief. Eli didn't mention Mason, and I let the silence settle, a gentle boundary between us and the old hurt. A few weeks after the party, Eli asked if we could have a picnic, just the two of us, no crowd, no decorations, just sandwiches in the sky. We packed peanut butter and jelly, a blanket, and his beloved astronomy book. We drove to the park, the grass wet and bright birds singing overhead. Eli sprawled on the blanket, pointing out shapes in the clouds, naming them after planets and comets. "That one's Saturn, and that one's the Milky Way," he announced, waving his sandwich like a conductor's baton. I lay back and let the sunlight warm my face, grateful for the ordinary magic of that afternoon. He pulled out the constellation drawing he'd made after the party, two big stars labeled Eli and Mom, surrounded by smaller ones. "We should start our own tradition," he said. "Every year, just us. A picnic and stargazing?" His voice was shy, but hopeful. I smiled. "That sounds perfect, Eli. Our own constellation, our own story." Back at home, we taped his drawing above the bed next to the faded paper chain. Eli wrote a thank you note to Jessica at Polaris Skyview, carefully spelling out each word. "Thank you for showing us the stars." It was the best birthday ever. As the days passed, I noticed little changes. Eli was lighter, more at ease. He ran to greet friends at school, chatted with other parents, invited a classmate over for a sleepover. He wore his astronaut badge with quiet pride, telling anyone who asked that he'd seen Saturn's rings for his birthday. For me, the shift was quieter, but just as real. I started joining other parents for coffee after drop-off, something I'd always been too busy or too anxious to do before. One mother who'd reached out after the party became a friend. We swapped stories, some funny, some bittersweet, about raising kids, about standing up for ourselves, about choosing new traditions. Heather and Sandra remained on the periphery. There were no big arguments, no apologies, just a respectful distance. I realized that boundaries don't always need to be announced. Sometimes you just hold them and move forward. Our family looked different now, but it felt more honest. As spring blossomed, Eli and I made plans for the summer, a trip to the Science Museum, evenings spent watching meteor showers from the backyard, more picnics under the open sky. Our world felt smaller but richer. One night, Eli curled up beside me, tracing the stars on his drawing. "Mom, I'm glad it's just us. I don't need a big party. I just want to look at the sky with you." I hugged him close, heart full. "Me too, kiddo. We'll always have the stars." Before bed, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote in my journal, a simple line, but one that felt like an arrival. Sometimes you have to draw your own constellations. Looking back, I see the tangled threads of old habits and family expectations. For so many years, I tried to smooth things over, hoping that patience alone could buy peace. It took Eli's 8th birthday, with all its heartbreak and quiet courage, to show me that real love sometimes means saying enough. I learned that boundaries can hurt, but they also heal. When I finally chose to stand up for Eli and for myself, I opened the door to a new kind of happiness. Our world is smaller than before, but it's filled with genuine warmth. I see Eli grow braver every day, trusting that his place in the world is safe and earned. The hardest lesson was understanding that family isn't defined by who demands the most, but by who shows up with love and respect. Sometimes you have to let go of old roles and draw your own constellations. Have you ever had to choose your own path, even when it meant letting go of what was familiar? I'd love to hear your stories. Leave a comment or share your journey. And if this story touched you, I hope you'll join us again.